Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth, and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Are you feeling charitable? Then smash the subscribe button and the like button, and please do follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad for lots of fun, open conversations, and lots of stuff where we just annoy everyone. Right, on this video, I want to do something a little bit different because I've been thinking about Dave Filoni's conversation around that round table over on Disney Plus when he kind of analysed Star Wars from episode 1 to episode 6 and really talked about the genius of George Lucas and what he did. And I think that spoke to every Star Wars fan that grew up with this franchise and this concept of George Lucas. Dave Filoni is a very interesting chap. He embodies the Star Wars story, if you like, because George is like this Jedi Master, and Dave Filoni was the Padawan learner who came along for the ride when he brought him in on Clone Wars. And now he's a Jedi. He's a fully trained Jedi. Dave Filoni is, just like Luke was, the new hope, the only hope that we can get good Star Wars. Bad Batch has just been announced, which is a spin-off from Clone Wars, right? There's some positive noises being made, but what I want us to do is listen to what Dave had to say sitting around that round table, because I don't think it's just about Star Wars, even though George, I know that Dave was talking about Star Wars, but to me, it talks about the division between Superman fans of the Donnerverse and fans of the Snyderverse, and the division that's there. But it goes deeper than that. It's about the divisions between modern movie fans and movie fans of bygone years gone by. We're arguing what's the superior, what's better, the way they used to make movies or the way they're making them now. I think we have lost something with storytelling and movie making and TV show making, because I do believe that 2000 to about 2013 was the golden generation of television, and I think that streaming TV has dumbed down the quality of what we used to have with these genius shows, even going back to something amazing like Quantum Leap, X-Files. So I want us to listen to what Dave Filoni had to say. I know we will listen to it so we can analyse it. And I think it's a deeper message. It goes beyond Star Wars. Let's give it a listen.
Prequels, I thought, were almost an impossible task. How do you tell this story that we've all grown up with, imagining who Anakin Skywalker was? You saw so many things in Phantom Menace that you just imagined, like the Jedi Council, and none of it really was what I had expected. But I know now that that's just like how creative George is. Like, he just sees it differently, and he's laying it down. And I love the lightsaber fight with Darth Maul, not because it's a lightsaber fight, but because George is so good at crafting why that fight's important every time. Like, the Obi-Wan Darth Vader fight isn't like the most wonderfully staged necessarily combat that you're ever going to see, but there's so much at stake. It's so meaningful when Obi-Wan dies that we all feel like Luke. In Phantom Menace, you're watching these two Jedi in their prime fight this evil villain. Maul couldn't be more obviously the villain. He's designed to look evil, and he is evil, and he just expresses that from his face all the way up to the type of lightsaber he fights with. What's at stake is really how Anakin's going to turn out, because Qui-Gon is different than the rest of the Jedi, and you get that in the movie, and Qui-Gon is fighting because he knows he's the father that Anakin needs. Because Qui-Gon hasn't given up on the fact that Jedi are supposed to actually care and love, and that's not a bad thing. The rest of the Jedi are so detached and they've become so political that they've really lost their way. And Yoda starts to see that in the second film. But Qui-Gon...
Now, this is very interesting. When I think of Qui-Gon Jinn, I actually think of Jor-El, both Brando's version and Russell Crowe's version in Man of Steel. So in both stories, it's obvious that the Kryptonian Council's heart was in the right place, but they become robotic, they've become political. But like Qui-Gon, both versions of Jor-El still believes in the freedom of choice and decision. Jor-El can see that the planet is going to implode, and they're living in denial. And he comes up with this plan to send his only child, his son, to Earth to save his people. And it's very, very interesting. Now, Brando's version sends him to be the savior of Earth because Brando is forward thinking and thinks about other civilizations and says maybe he can save Earth from what happens to Krypton. And in Man of Steel, it's more about ensuring the survival of the Kryptonian race. And I think that's why Jor-El does remind me of Qui-Gon in a lot of ways. Qui-Gon isn't like the rest of the Jedi. That's why he's not on the council. He's very emotional. He picks up waifs and strays like Jar Jar. And Anakin, he wants to help people, even though he says that's not Jedi's role. Deep down, he's breaking the rules. He's rebelling because he believes that the Jedi have lost something. And this is exactly what Dave's talking about in this kind of roundtable conversation.
The head of them all. And that's why he's not part of the council. So he's fighting for Anakin. And that's why it's the duel of fates. It's the fate of this child. And depending on how this fight goes, Anakin his life's gonna be dramatically different. So Qui-Gon loses, of course. So the father figure, because he knew what it meant to take this kid away from his mother when he had an attachment, and he's left with Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan trains Anakin at first out of a promise he makes to Qui-Gon, not because he cares about him. When they get Anakin, they find him on Tatooine, he says, why do I feel like we've found another useless life form? He's comparing Anakin to Jar Jar. Excuse me. And he's saying, this is a waste of our time. Why are we doing this? Why do you see importance in these creatures like Jar Jar Binks and this 10-year-old boy? This is useless.
Very interesting. I've always thought that George kind of took his inspiration for Luke Skywalker through Clark Kent. You see, the difference between Luke Skywalker and Anakin Skywalker is that Luke is actually brought up by people who are not his parents, but he's brought up by these farmers, like Clark Kent is, by the way. And it's a secluded place. It's not a city or anything. And these farmers, in both cases, teach Clark and Luke a good way of living, doing the right thing, hard work. And this is why Luke is so different to Anakin, because he had structure, he had lessons, he had life lessons, he had a good father figure, he had a good mother figure. But at the end of the day, Anakin lost his mother when he was very young. So all he's got is Obi-Wan, who at first doesn't even want him. And then they become like brothers and they're kind of competing and stuff. And Anakin is trying to, Obi-Wan is trying to teach Anakin, but he's finding it difficult because it's too late, because Anakin didn't have structure at a young age, but Luke did. This is why Luke is able to resist the Emperor and Anakin wasn't, because he sees the Emperor as a father figure. He sees Palpatine as a father figure, and Palpatine knows this and manipulates that and takes advantage of that. So the similarities between Clark Kent and Luke Skywalker are actually very interesting.
So he's a brother to Anakin eventually, but he's not a father figure. That's a failing for Anakin. He doesn't have the family that he needs. He loses his mother in the next film. He fails on this promise that he made, mother, I will come back and save you. So he's left completely vulnerable. And Star Wars ultimately is about family. So that moment in that movie, which a lot of people I think diminish into just a cool lightsaber fight, but it's everything that the entire 3 films of the prequels hangs on, is that one particular fight. And Maul serves his purpose, and at that point died before George may bring him back. But he died, and that's to show you again how the Emperor is completely self-serving. He doesn't care; it's just a tool, and he's using people. And now he's going to use this child. That follows all the way through to the line which terrified me as a kid when the Emperor tells Luke, "You, like your father, are now mine." And the idea when I was a little kid watching that movie of some evil person possessing my father.
In fact, when I listen to Filoni speaking, because I think about ways of making a brand new Superman movie and a story all the time as a fan, as we all do. And I think if you look into those first 6 movies, there is a great idea there for Superman. I mean, I don't know how you would do it, but what if Jor-El becomes this kind of Darth Vader, right? Somehow, and ends up on Earth. And he becomes this demon. that's kind of dominating the Earth and leading the Earth, right? Like Vader and the Emperor do in the galaxy, right? But someone manipulated him to leave Krypton, to go to Earth, to do this, right? But before he left Krypton, him and Lara had the baby Kal-El, right? Baby Kal-El, right? And then it's Kal-El's, destiny to go to Earth and stop his father, right? And not become what his father become. I think there's some interesting little story ideas when you look at Star Wars, because I do think he took a lot from a lot of iconic stories, Lucas. And I think, as I say, Luke Skywalker being adopted by these two people who, at the end of the day, are not blood relatives, right? Anakin's mother married, is it Lars, right? And then, Luke's adopted by his son and his daughter-in-law, right? And so and that's only because Obi-Wan takes him there, right? So, but they bring him up and give him the structure that he needs. And this is, as I said, this is why Luke's different. So I do think if you look at Star Wars, there's some great ideas to tell a great brand new Superman story that's never been done before. And also tell a really epic story, but tell a story that has an arc. Now, a lot of people, I'm sure, watching this video will be against that. But I do think there's something interesting to do here when you look deeper into this. And this is why I think what Filoni is saying here isn't just important for Star Wars and its future. Isn't just important when you think of the divides between Superman fans, Snyder and Donner fans, and the comic books, right? From what Schuster and Siegel did to what they've done and where they've made him a little bit more like Batman and stuff like that. This is where the divide is. What should Superman be? The all-blue inspirational Boy Scout, the guy who first came into the comics, who was literally a social justice warrior, not that type of social justice warrior, a good type. He's beating up mine owners who's abusing his employees. He's beating up husbands who are abusing their wives. I think that's actually a good idea for Superman, to take him back to that. I would really like that. So let's carry on listening to this, because what Filoni's saying goes beyond Star Wars as far as I'm concerned.
Making him do things or making him be evil was terrifying. That was like a thought that was horrible. Also, it's amazing when you watch Return of the Jedi that Luke has never done anything that I would call it like he's a bad character. He has like a tendency to be dark, and a lot of people wanted Anakin. Oh, he should have been darker as a character. It's not true at all. I believe Luke would turn to the dark side in Return of the Jedi. I believe that was on the table. I believe that he would kill the Emperor. And because the way George arranged the story, I knew that was the wrong thing to do. When he's saying, you want your weapon, strike me down, I'm defenseless. He wants him to give into his anger. He wants him to give into his hate and the fear.
You see, Star Wars is all about temptation. This is the story that Lucas was trying to tell. So when people say, well, George Lucas did political commentary on his films, yes, but we're talking about a different political commentary. We're talking about how Hitler became what he became, how Vader became what he became, how he was manipulated. The father made bad choices because he didn't have any structure, but the son can make better choices. He doesn't have to be tempted because he's been brought up by better people. I'm not saying that Lars and his wife were, better people, or I forgot what the actual people who brought Luke up, was it Baru and whatever, right? But anyway, right, they gave Luke a better structure, and Obi-Wan was wiser and learned from his mistakes that he made with Anakin for the short period he knew Luke Skywalker for, to teach him a better way. So when he does sacrifice himself to Vader, Luke can be prepared to be the hero the galaxy needs him to be. It's all about structure. It's all about, can I resist this temptation to go down the dark side? And these are temptations that ordinary human beings have all the time.
The structure that George has laid out in all the movies is coming to fruition now. And the only thing that's going to save him is not his connection to the Force. It's not the powers he's learned. It's not all these things that are an advantage to him. That's gotten him to the table. But what saves Luke is his ability to look at all that and look at his father and say, no, I'm going to throw away this weapon. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let that go and be selfless. And he says, I am a Jedi like my father before me, but he's really saying, and why I connect so powerfully to it, is like he's saying, I love my father. There's nothing you can do that's going to change that. And the Emperor can't understand that connection. Why wouldn't you take someone from the power of the galaxy? Why wouldn't you take this? And Anakin then in that moment has to decide to be the father that he's never had. He has to give up all the power of the galaxy and save his son. And that's the selfless act that he does in return for his son. And that's what saves him in turn. So the son said, the father says his son. And it works out perfectly. And I draw that line all the way from Phantom Menace to Jedi. That's the story of Star Wars.
So when he pops the helmet, he's saying when he pops the helmet off in that moment was part of the fated arc.
It's all part of the fated arc. It's all part of like why it works and why we care. It's not about X-Wings. It's not about all the things we decorate Star Wars in. It's important. It's part of the genius of it. But we soulfully react like we don't just want an action movie. We want to feel uplifted. And Star Wars is an adventure that makes you feel good. It makes me feel like, wow, I want to be a part of that. So that's what I always go back to with Star Wars is this selfless act and this family dynamic, which is so important to George, so important to the foundation of Star Wars. That's in us, and what I like about it is it is really saying there is a lot of hope out there, that we fundamentally want to be good people, that we can all be driven to do terrible things, but that we can persevere through selfless action. So George has this hopeful story, and it's something that he's reiterated most times I've seen him, after we've been making things without him, is remember to make these stories hopeful. Remember to give that to kids because they really need it. And so that's just something to keep in mind.
Well, we all remember what he said on Disney Plus, and I must admit, when I saw that, I wasn't expecting anything so inspirational. I just expected more blags to tell us how great the sequel trilogy is. But that's amazing. That's amazing. And I want to impart this in conversations that we've had before about the modern storytelling temple and how Hollywood has become so disconnected, where it only makes blockbusters now, where it only makes superhero movies and Star Wars films and Pixar films. But where are the Field of Dreams? Where is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves? You can tell me people are not interested in those films. We wasn't interested in Robin Hood before Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. But it was so well done and so exciting, and it worked and it made a lot of money. Field of Dreams. I didn't ask for anyone to make a film where a voice says, if you build it, he will come. But it's so damn emotional, and it resonates between fathers and sons. It's important. And I want to see stories between mothers and daughters, more stories like that. But I think this is a big conversation, as I say, about the modern film industry and how disconnected the entertainment industry is, how it's obsessed with its political commentary and ideologies rather than entertainment. But as well, and mainly, I want to talk about Superman. I wanted to actually mention Smallville here, because I think when I think about a live-action Superman, I think of Smallville. I think that's the best one that's ever been made. And I don't want you to get hateful down in the comments, because I love Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Superman the movie, Superman 2, even 3 and 4. There's things in those films I love. But Smallville does something that no live action's really done enough. Focusing on Clark Kent. Clark Kent is the character. Now, in the Lois and Clark show, again, Clark Kent is the character, and Superman is the thing he becomes so he can fight crime, right? Because he has to protect the people he knows and loves. People can't know who he is, right? And Superman is awesome. So Clark Kent is who he is. And Superman enables him to do what he does, to be a hero, right? And I don't think there's any film that's focused enough on Clark Kent. I mean, Man of Steel focuses on him a bit, and I think Superman Returns tries, but there's not enough narrative on that character. I think the reason Luke Skywalker works because It's about that character and the struggles and finding out these hidden truths that destroy him, right? But he still goes on. No matter what he finds out, he's still the hero that we need him to be. And Clark Kent ultimately is on a hero's path in Smallville, right? So let's get deeper into Smallville, because Smallville is very Luke Skywalker, Star Warsy, if you want. Think about it. He arrives on Smallville. He's found by the Kents, obviously. He's brought up. His father's trying to teach him the right way to use his powers, the right lessons, right? So really, season 1's about the stories of the week. They made Kryptonite into a character. He's fighting these crypto freaks. It's amazing. Then season 2 is, where am I from? So then he finds out where he's from. He meets Dr. Virgil Swan, a.k.a. the late, great Christopher Reeve. And then, obviously, Terence Stamp plays the voice of Jor-El. What a great casting, Miles and Miles. So then he knows. And then in season 3, it's about demons. It's basically, how does a good man become a good man? How does he stay a good man? And there's these parallels between the good son and the bad son. So you've got Lex Luthor. He's losing his mind. His mental health is breaking. His mental health illness is being manipulated by Lionel, right? His own father puts him in an asylum, right? And gives him electroshock therapy so he can wipe his mind, because Lex finds out that Lionel, his father, killed his parents, right? So there's these two parallels in season 3 where Clark's trying to, go on this hero's path. And also you've got Lex going on the opposite path. And then what I remember from those 2 season 3 episodes, Asylum and Shattered, is that's how he becomes Lex, the Lex that we know. Who could survive this? Who could be a good person after suffering that? And that's the genius of Miles Miller and our Miles, right? Alfred Goff and Miles Miller. So in season 4, he then goes on this quest to find these 3 crystals, and it's the knowledge of the universe that's in these crystals, and ultimately they will create the Fortress of Solitude. Then in season 5, the fortress rises and Brainiac erupts. So it's this really heroic quest for Clark from season 1 to season 10, when he embraces being Superman. And it's amazing. Focusing on Clark Kent as the character is very important, because that's the character's human side. But also in Smallville, there was this, what do I do? Embrace my Kryptonian side or my human side? And of course, in the finale, he says to Jor-El, I should never have ignored my Kryptonian side. Clark's now, by the end of Smallville, found a balance to embrace his human side and his Kryptonian side. And both these sides make him Superman. But Clark, the character, is the most important thing. And if anyone actually wrote a film focusing on the character and talking about a hero's journey, like they did on Smallville, like George Lucas did with Luke Skywalker, I think we could get a very interesting Superman arc and Superman trilogy, or maybe going beyond that. And I think that would be very exciting. Focusing on Clark Kent is the key to creating something inspirational. And again, I love BVS and MOS and Superman the movie. It's not about saying those films are not good, but I think this kind of hero's journey got a lot of people invested in Star Wars and in Luke Skywalker and in Clark Kent in Smallville. Smallville works. You should go and watch the whole 10 seasons and you'll get it. And if you don't love Superman, you will after you watch this show. You will be sucked in. I promise you. Yeah, it gets a bit soapy at times. Yeah, there's relationships and things like that. But ultimately, this show is the way you make Superman successful and viable to a mainstream audience. Because he hasn't been viable to a mainstream audience since Smallville, since Reeves' movies. We know that Man of Steel is a great movie, and it looks amazing, and it feels amazing. And Snyder is telling a story that I love. I feel the same way about Donner's Superman the movie. It's a great film, and it's a great way to tell a Superman story. But if you can go down that avenue of Clark being like Luke Skywalker, and, maybe the Earth's been taken over by Kryptonians, I don't know. Maybe Jor-El is the evil father that Clark has to ultimately fight. It's an interesting new story that can go on a hopeful journey. It's something different. But just listening to Filoni and what he had to say, and as I said at the top of the show, this isn't just about Star Wars and the damage that was done by the sequel trilogy, because decisions were made by people who simply don't not only understand Star Wars, by the way, but don't understand storytelling and the constructs of storytelling. Lucas studied it and made sure he understood it before he did it. The same with Donner. I believe that Snyder understands the elements of storytelling. His ideas are not bad ideas or wrong ideas. They're just different, right? And they work for a lot of people, and for some other people, it don't work, and that's fine as long as you constructively love it and constructively hate it, rather than attacking people who love it or attacking people who hate it. This is what's led us down this toxic line. So I think if you really listen to what Filoni has to say, I think not only could we create a Superman saga that everybody loves, but we can actually fix the problems that are in Hollywood. Comment down below. Like, share and subscribe, and I'll be back tomorrow with the DC Daily. See you again soon.